Welcome to part 1 of our 2-part video series on installing your new Scion FRS and Subaru BRZ Turbo kit. This project should not be performed by the novice mechanic. You should be familiar with turbochargers, how they operate, and know the components included in the kit before even lifting the car off the ground. With that said, the installation guide here should make this task much easier. If you run into any issues, feel free to contact us for clarification or advice. We're always willing to help. Before we get started, you're going to need access to a few specialized tools, including a welder, a cutoff wheel or Dremel, an advanced mechanics toolkit with deep and short well sockets, extensions, screwdrivers, and a torque wrench capable of both foot-pound and inch-pound measurements. Lastly, you'll need a place to install the kit, as the car will be inoperable for a few days. Our kit should include everything needed for the installation, but backup transportation to the auto parts store is highly recommended. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. First, disconnect the negative battery terminal, then raise the vehicle and drain the oil. When the oil has been drained, you may begin pulling the belly pan. It is held on with 6 body clips, 11 10mm bolts, and 12 12mm bolts. With the belly pan off, you may begin removing the front bumper, front air dam, and all under paneling. For more details on how to remove these components, check out our FRS oil cooler install guide below. Once complete, you may begin draining the coolant from the radiator. When the coolant is completely drained, close the drain plug and begin working on the exhaust. Please note that our car here has an aftermarket exhaust with slip joint exhaust clamp. This will be different on stock applications, as they utilize a regular 2-bolt flange. Remove the bolts from the slip joint or flange, along with the O2 sensor on the midpipe. Next, remove the 2 14mm bolts from the exhaust manifold flange and set the midpipe aside. Lastly, remove the last O2 sensor from the manifold and remove the 6 14mm flange bolts. Remove the stock exhaust manifold from the car and set aside. Lower the car and remove your stock airbox. Again, our car shown has an aftermarket intake setup, so we're not going to be able to show that procedure. However, it is pretty straightforward and simple, as it only requires removing a few bolts and some clamps. Remove everything related to the stock induction system, including all ducting, deflectors, and insulation, as it will not be needed with the Scion FRS and Subaru BRZ Turbo kit's intake system. Remove the stock radiator and all hoses along with the stock overflow tank, which is held on by 2 10mm bolts. Unplug the fans and unclip the harness from the shroud. Remove the upper radiator support brackets by removing the 4 10mm bolts. Remove the core support and hood latch fasteners, a total of 12 10mm bolts. Remove the 4 10mm fasteners attaching the AC condenser to the radiator, and remember to support the radiator so it doesn't fall. To make it easier to remove the radiator, remove the crash bar by undoing the 8 12mm bolts. Set the crash bar and radiator aside. Lastly, remove the windshield washer fluid reservoir by taking off the top retaining clip and 2 10mm bolts. Now that we have 90% of the old pieces off the car that need to be replaced, let's start by modifying the things that we need to keep. First, we'll modify the fan shroud. Since our turbo housing is going to be sitting on the passenger side, we will need to remove the rather large stock BRZ fan on that side. Using either a Dremel tool, cutoff wheel, or sawzall, remove the fan by cutting as close to the base as possible. You also want to remove the stub from that side as well. Place your cut shroud over the supplied Mishimoto radiator, placing the supplied slim fan under the newly created opening. Mark where the mounting tabs are and insert the zip bolts through the radiator. Fasten the shroud to the radiator and flip the assembly over to secure the fan. Reinstall the assembly onto the vehicle using all OEM hoses. Finish by reattaching the AC condenser to the radiator. In the next part, we're going to modify the oil pan and install the hot side components in our turbo kit. Start by removing the stock oil pan. It is held on by 12 10mm bolts. Gently tap the pan with a rubber mallet to help break the gasket seal. When you've gotten the pan off, thoroughly clean the mating surface with a razor blade, scotch pad, or soft wire brush. Remove all contaminants to ensure the new gasket seals. The kit includes a weld-on return bung, which requires drilling a hole and welding the fitting on the pan. Or include the option of a pre-modified oil pan, which has a larger capacity and threaded spot for a return bung. Depending on your automotive knowledge, the MAP pan may be the best option. Whichever route you choose, apply the gasket marker to the pan and install using the supplied hardware. OEM pans will be torqued to 89 inch-pounds, while the larger MAP pan should be torqued to 110 inch-pounds. Remember to install the drain plug before moving on to the next step. With the new pan on, install your oil return fitting. Lubricate the push-on fitting ends to make them easier to assemble. Remember to use gasket material on the threads of the fitting to prevent leaks. Install the FRS BRZ Turbo Kit exhaust manifold next. You should be able to reuse your factory gaskets unless they're blown out. Ensure clearance around the oil pan and return line before tightening the bolts. With the manifold on, clock the oil return line so they don't touch the exhaust. With the manifold and oil return line ready to go, lower the vehicle and install the oil feed lines and fittings. Remove the 8mm Allen cap on the block and install the plied dowty washer and reducer fitting to the -4AN feed fitting. Remember to use sealant on those fittings also. Wait to tighten the feed line fitting until you have the turbo oriented correctly, which is what we'll do next. Install feed and return fittings on the turbo housing using the supplied hardware and gasket sealant. Loosen the bolts on your turbo's center section to allow rotation of both the compressor and exhaust housings. Attach the exhaust housing to the manifold using the supplied hardware and thread locker. Rotate the center section so the feed line is facing up. Tighten the exhaust housing bolts. Rotate the compressor side until the turbo outlet is facing down, parallel to the crankshaft pulley with approximately 1 inch of clearance. Tighten the compressor side bolts. Assemble your wastegate. Since our car here will not be using an external boost controller, we're going to plug the top fitting and just run boost reference from the compressor housing. Attach the wastegate to the manifold and leave the clamps loose until we can find the correct orientation. With the wastegate installed in the manifold, we're going to attach the downpipe next. But before we can do this, we need to wrap it in heat tape. If you've never done this before, it's fairly straightforward. You're going to need to soak the tape for an hour or so before you wrap it. As it dries, it will shrink around the pipe, sealing it and reducing engine bay temps all at once. With the tape wet, start at one end of the pipe and work your way down, overlapping slightly as you go. You shouldn't need all of the tape, but make sure you use enough. When the pipe is completely wrapped, use a metal zip tie or hose clamp to keep it from coming unwrapped. Set it aside to let it dry. When dry, attach the recirculation pipe to the downpipe. When the recirculation pipe has been successfully attached, you may tighten all the clamps to finish this step. In the next video, we're going to modify the crash bar, get the cold side piping installed, and finish up the install of your new turbo kit.